Hello, my name is Yuri, and this is a video review of the game demo version of Life. I've been running Cashflow Crisis Runs games for 7.5 years. During this time, I've hosted over 500 games, and now we'll be talking about my original game. First and foremost, my experience.
Since 2016, I've been actively engaged in life insurance business.
I've also changed more than 30 jobs throughout my life. This allows me to share with people the valuable experience they truly need. Furthermore, I'm actively involved in cryptocurrency investments and have explored many different avenues in my life. In 2022, thanks to my esteemed partners Kolya Palamarchuk and Dima Pasishnyuk, we commenced the realization of our game idea, demo version of Life. And thanks to diverse opinions, various perspectives, and different approaches, we have created something that many, if not all, truly appreciate. Also, naturally, I have a bigger team. I also have other people whom you will see on screen who genuinely invest a great deal of time and effort to make the game increasingly resemble reality. And now we will talk about how to play it and what you will be able to gain from it. Let's start by understanding the similarities and differences from similar games. First of all, this is an authentic game about Ukraine. There are many things here that you can encounter in Ukraine, and accordingly, first and foremost, these are probably the banknotes that catch the eye. The banknotes are euros, so you'll be using euros in the game, but each of them features different famous landmarks of Ukraine. For example, here we have St. Andrew's Church, Donbas Arena in Donetsk, and so on. This way you'll learn more about our culture and perhaps even be interested in visiting another interesting place.
Play mechanics are similar to Rat Race, Monopoly and Cashflow, because here you also need to roll dice in order to move. You will also need to move your tokens to land on different squares.
And decisions are also made thanks to certain cards. But the main difference is that it looks absolutely nothing like that. You'll notice the game board is shaped like a hexagon, and the next stage of the game isn't on the outside, as is often the case in similar games, but rather on the inside. And this is Maslow's pyramid triangle. What Maslow's pyramid is, you can easily Google and read about online if you still don't know. It's also very important to understand that this game will use various situations that exist in real life. Let's take, for example, Monopoly. When you start, you immediately have a lot of money, right? And you have to make sure you get there faster, where other players will go later and take their money, and only one wins.
If we're talking about cash flow or the rat race, the story is this. You have almost no money at the start, but you absolutely must work a job.
And often I've seen people try to succeed in cash flow, in rat races on their own. In our game, the story unfolds quite differently. At the beginning, you have some starting capital depending on how much your parents saved. More on that later. You can also choose if you start with a job or entrepreneurship. You can start with nothing. That's possible in real life too. And it's also very crucial to understand that team player is the one who truly succeeds here. Typically, those individuals who communicate more, negotiate more, and assist others more are the ones who find success in this particular game. Consequently, let's proceed to that point. And one more important thing, I really loved playing Monopoly and various games like Cashflow, and I noticed one interesting thing. To achieve success there and to truly understand who won or lost, it all comes down to finances. The primary objective of that game was to learn how to manage finances and generate greater income. But real life, it's actually quite different. In life, not everyone is solely interested in money. There are other aspects of life that people find interesting and which are actually much more important to some.
Let's take a moment to talk about what success looks like here and how it's actually achieved. In this game, success isn't random or abstract. It's built step by step. We've broken it down into 5 key areas that define progress and shape the whole experience.
The first, obviously, is financial success. Finances are what everyone thinks about, and without them, it's simply impossible. But in any case, this area might not be the most important for you, not the most important for every player. In it, you can achieve success together. The second area is development. Self-development is an important element of our life. The more a person develops, the more opportunities open up for them. The third area is family and relationships. If you have a person who supports you, who is with you throughout your life's journey, going through everything, it's much better than when you don't have one. The fourth area is recognition. Few people talk about it, but in reality it is very important. Remember moments when you were awarded somewhere, when you won some sports competitions, or simply when you were told at home that you did well, that you did something on time. You were very happy, most likely, that in that situation. And the fifth category is helping people. When you help someone or do something nice for them, give gifts, remember those moments. Most likely you were satisfied with what you did. Accordingly, this category is also present in the game. to achieve success in the game demo version of Life, you need to develop in several categories that are important to you. This means you can try different strategies. Today, 2 categories might be important, but perhaps in the next game, other categories will be important to you. And as you collect these tokens and achieve results in the game, you will understand what you did right and what you did wrong.
Now, briefly, what tokens you can earn. If we're talking about financial success, then when you have a certain amount of cash, up to 50,000, or there's a certain cash flow, you've achieved the cash flow of $5,000, $20,000, you get a financial success token. You can see more details on screen about how to earn chips. In the development category, when you improve a skill, you get a chip. For family, if you start a relationship or family life with children, you earn chips. Recognition is when you do something others would also like to do, and you get a chip. And the final category is helping people. This is probably the most interesting one. When you've performed a good deed and it was selfless, meaning you didn't ask for anything in return, if you've done this, you don't announce it yourself, but someone else, the host, a coach, or another player, can draw attention to it and say that so-and-so did a good deed, let's award them the helping people chip.
And in that case, Taga, you can get it when you did good but weren't thinking about the outcome. And also for volunteering, you can get perks for helping people in some cases. So where does it all begin? It starts when in the game you're 18 to 20 years old, just stepping into adulthood. You need to find out how much money your dear parents have saved for you to kickstart your adult life. For this, we use a die. In this case, you use 1 die to determine how much money you will receive. Each of you will take turns rolling the dice, and depending on the number that lands, you will receive a specific sum of money. If you roll a 1, that's 500 euros. If a 2, it's 1500. If a 6, it's 4500. For more detailed information about which amounts correspond to what, you can find it in our game rules board. Once you have done this, you received cash. Each player has 2 minutes to decide on the Entrepreneurship tablet. These kinds of game boards exist in our game. So there isn't a separate job or a separate business. It's both combined into one form. You draw a game board. Let's say, for example, I, as a player, just drew a game board. I received an offer to become a taxi driver. I've had that experience before, and I don't think I'd want to start out as a taxi driver. Yet, it's not something I'm particularly interested in. I might agree to it because there are absolutely no initial costs, meaning no need to invest any money since it's just a job. The only thing here is the profit from the work, which is 1,000 euros, and constant regular expenses amounting to 400 euros. So the cash flow for this particular scenario is 600 euros at the start. But personally, I wouldn't be interested in starting with a job, so I can choose option number 2. I'm selecting option number 2. What do we have here? Call center sales. It's possible to open a sales call center business. The initial investment is 3,000 euros with an initial profit of 3,000 euros and starting expenses amounting to 2,000 euros. So the cash flow will be 1,000 euros, but you need 3,000 euros just to start this venture. And I make a decision, does it suit me or not? If I have enough cash and I want a call center, then fine. No questions asked. I pay and I start the business immediately. If there isn't enough cash, you need to come up with something. You can talk to someone about agreeing to open the business together. Perhaps you'll find yourself needing to borrow money from someone, right? Perhaps you'll want to get started without a proper business setup. And in that case, if you refuse the tablet a second time, then you don't have the option to get a third one. So the only time you can choose a second tablet is if you refuse the first one. If you start with nothing, then your initial expenses are 400 euros, and there are no incomes or profits, respectively, at the start. Well then, how are we going to record what we have, what has appeared, what has been subtracted, right? We have a financial statement. The financial statement looks like this, and we complete it in this manner. The player's name is Yuri, birthday is optional, the token color is yellow. We fill in the cells if we have a job, if we've agreed to a job. Since I started with entrepreneurship, I'm writing call center here. The initial expenses for the call center are 2,000 euros, and the income is 3,000 euros.
In this case, we also record them here because it affects our cash flow. We need to understand how much money we'll receive after passing the account sell. So I have no work income listed. The entrepreneur's profit is 3,000. Total profit is 3,000 for now. Total expenses are 2,000 and cash flow, the money flow, is 1,000 euros. You can also see that at the bottom left, you have all the possible expenses in the game. This is rent, business expenses, hired staff, family, and so on. So when you incur additional costs, you must record them here and move them to overall expenses, and this will affect your cash flow. Also, it's important to keep in mind that the interest on the loan, which we will discuss further, will also be recorded here and subsequently transferred into your general expenses. In this way, when you are recording the interest payment for the loan, this will also impact your total expenditures and consequently your cash flow.
You can record your businesses here if you have a large one in the game. Assets and liabilities are apartments, cars, and also development. If you get any development cards, you can write their names directly here.
All those bonds, if you decide to purchase bonds, it can also include stocks, cryptocurrency, a life insurance policy, and even relationships. We'll delve into more detail when we examine each of these cards individually.
How can we cooperate with the bank in our game?
There are two options, either a loan or an insurance policy. First and foremost, I want to highlight a major problem I noticed in previous game versions I played or ran. Almost everyone to succeed in that game relied on credit. This meant taking out loans, getting into debt, and there were no limits on borrowing. The conditions were very lenient. In reality, none of this was sustainable. We reworked many things in past game versions and realized that credit isn't always the best way. Credit can be used, but not always. And in our game, you will truly need to think 5 to 10 times before deciding whether to use credit or not. So let me now show you an example of how to apply for it if you happen to need it. All right, our financial report. When you're applying for a loan, you'll use this section of your financial report. So what do you see here? For example, I took out a loan at 2 p.m. and took 1,000 euros. I wrote down 14 and 1,000 euros. The interest on the loan is 20%. In this case, from 1,000 euros, that's 200 euros, which I record here and also transfer to the total expenses. So now my total expenses are 2,000 plus 200 euros, equaling 2,200 euros. The cash flow in this particular situation decreases because you have the option to either subtract the total expenses from your overall profit or deduct 200 euros directly from the cash flow, which specifically represent the interest payments. This way, you will pay these 200 euros precisely when you land on the account space, which we will discuss further very soon. And also, when you're ready to close out your loan, you have two options. The first option is this. If within 2 hours, meaning by 4 p.m. sharp, you settle the loan, then you return the 1,000 you borrowed plus 50% on top for using the credit. So you need to pay 1,500 to the bank by 4 p.m. sharp. If you don't do this, then at 4 p.m. the host, the coach, will start a 3-minute timer, and within 3 minutes you must return to the bank either double the amount you borrowed, that is 2,000, or if you don't have cash, you must return any existing assets equivalent to the debt. If you also have no assets, then you lost. A policy for life insurance. Since 2016, I've had my own life insurance policy. A life insurance policy and life pause. Is that a normal tautology? You can leave this as it is, just insert it. I've had it since 2016, and because I was actively involved in life insurance, I had many cases with my clients, my own insurance incidents, and it works. It's already proven itself. I decided to add this to the game as well, and to do it in a way so that you could use it quickly and understand how it works. So let me also explain, using a financial report as an example, how to arrange your life insurance policy. In your financial report here in the middle, you'll see the life insurance policy. Let's assume that again at 1400, I arranged my policy and you must immediately decide on the period. The minimum policy can be arranged for 1 hour for 6 payments. Let's take the minimum policy for 6 payments. The maximum doesn't matter, you can choose any amount. 1410, the first payment. The minimum amount for the first payment can be 1,000 euros. There is no maximum. 1,000 euros is the initial payment and the total insured amount comes to 6,000 euros. That's because we multiply the initial payment by the total number of installments. So 1,000 multiplied by 6 gives you 6,000 euros. Furthermore, when you are completing the policy, my strong recommendation is to set a timer for 10 minutes. Why is that? Because every 10 minutes you will be making recurring payments. In life, recurring payments generally need to be made every single year. But in this game, 3 minutes of real time is equivalent to 1 year. If we were to make a payment every 3 minutes, everyone would get completely confused. So every 10 minutes, you will make a payment. If after just 10 minutes you decide to make the very same payment, you simply write 1410 and in the next column 1,000 euros. And your total sum won't change because you will have 6 payments of 1,000 euros each. That's still 6,000, but you can additionally index, saving yourself from inflation and devaluation. So, if you wish, you have the option to, every 10 minutes or every 3 years and 4 months, increase your payment by at least 20%. This means if you possess more funds, you can set aside a greater amount. You could pay 1,200 euros instead of just 1,000. But in this particular case, the lead trainer will recommend indexation to you. So he will offer you either a regular payment or indexation. As long as you are paying your policy, you are primarily insured because this is insurance, right? What are they insured for? On different cards, in various situations, different events can happen just like in real life. For example, it might be that in the case cards, you get the situation, got sick with COVID-19. If you, for example, get sick yourself or break your leg, for instance, and you go to the hospital for treatment, who pays for the treatment? That's right, you pay. But if the situation is such that you also need medicine, maybe surgery and so on, who pays for it if there's no insurance? Absolutely correct, you pay. But if you have an insurance policy, then the insurance company will cover these losses for you. And often, with a well-structured policy, it happens that a person receives even more money than they paid for their medical treatment. It can also be the case that you, for example, took on some part-time work and something happened to your health while you were there. In such a situation, your insurance policy will also be effective. How do you know if your insurance policy worked or not? If, for example, you had an accident and your health was affected, then you roll a die. If it lands on 1, 3 or 5, then nothing happened. Everything's okay. If it's a 2, a 4 or a 6 that comes up, then that is an insured event and you will receive a payout. If you are insured, you will then receive 20, 40 or 60% of your total sum of your overall insured amount. But if you're uninsured and an event happens, you pay 20, 40 or 60% of the maximum policy on the table. If no one has a policy, then the payout is calculated from 6,000 euros or from the last policy opened previously. Also, if nothing happens, or even if some events occurred with you during your policy's hour or hour and a half, and it's expiring, right? Meaning the policy has reached its completion, then you first receive your money that you invested, which is 6,000 in this case, plus the interest that accrues. The trainer knows how much interest to calculate for you. The interest is calculated each and every time you make your next payment, and you will receive all of this money along with the accumulated interest right away. You're then completely free to do with it absolutely anything you wish. That's how it works in life. So you can, over 20 or 30 years, pay for your insurance in small installments, not worry if anything happens to you because the insurance will cover it. And in the end, you get your money back with interest, which is also a huge plus. Additionally, if you haven't paid your policy on time, meaning your initial 10 minutes have elapsed, you are required to make a subsequent payment. You are granted a 2-minute grace period, and should you fail to do so, your policy will then be cancelled, it will lapse, and you simply won't receive any benefits whatsoever when its term concludes. This can be for the second, the penultimate, or any payment. And if you'd like to delve a bit deeper visually, you can go to our Telegram bot with the rules of demo version of Life, which will be linked below the video. There you can understand any aspect of the rules in more detail, especially regarding adjustments or insurance policies. Let's move to the game board. First, let's talk about the account cells. At the 4 corners of the hexagon, you can see golden colored cells on which a euro symbol is drawn or the word start is written. These are the account cells. When you pass over this cell or land directly on it, you must ask the bank for your cash flow. This is the difference, I repeat, between all your income and your total expenses. If your cash flow is in the black, for example, like mine is now, 800 euros, in that case you receive 800 euros. If you requested them, if you said, bank, please give me 800 euros. But if your cash flow is negative, that also happens sometimes. Have you ever had situations in your life where your income was less than your expenses? I think some of you have experienced that. If not, that's great. You can live through this in the game, and it will be easier for you later if something like that happens in real life. So, if your cash flow is negative, probably at minus 100, minus 500 and so on, then when you land on the bills square, you must pay that money to the bank, meaning you have to pay for them.
Let's say, for instance, you find yourself in a situation where your expenses are significantly higher than your actual income. This could happen if you bought a car, for example, or you started a relationship, or you took out a loan, and so on. And your total income is, let's say, 3,000 euros, but your expenses are 5,000 or even more. Shit. If your cash flow at this moment is more than negative 1,000 euros and you pass the account, square, or land directly on it, you then have 3 minutes to resolve your cash flow situation. I recently spoke about how you can lose in the game if you don't pay your loan on time. You have no money, no assets, you've lost, right? So the second way you can lose is when your cash flow is minus 1,000 or more and you fail to resolve the cash flow issue. So after your move, your cash flow in the cash flow column should not be more than minus 1,000. I'll tell you, in these games I've hosted, there have been situations hundreds of times where players' cash flow was minus 1,000 or even more, and honestly, I can't even recall 10 people who actually lost. Why? Because you see, when someone finds themselves in such a situation, their brain starts working much more actively, searching for more ways to resolve the issue. You can buy a business from someone, generate additional income, right? You can cut expenses, you can sell something that incurs costs, right? So situations are resolved in different ways. If you have the will to play it through and resolve such a situation, you will certainly manage it. And for your life, this will be far more beneficial. If you play a game, find yourself in such a situation, live through it, discover a solution. And if later in real life you need to navigate a similar challenge, you will already know exactly how to handle it.
When you land up in an attack plus space on the playing board, you are then given the opportunity to draw chance cards. I was actually, Kush, a bit surprised when playing Cashflow Crazy and Bigger to see that there were somehow more incidents than opportunities. And I believe that successful people see many more opportunities than various incidents. So we decided to make sure there were as many as possible in the game. When we land on this particular square, the host will present you with 3 cards to choose from. These cards could be from completely different categories, or they might even all be from just one, as you see here. For instance, you can see here crypto, stocks, and plots of land. You choose one of them, whichever one you find more interesting, whichever topic is more appealing, and the host reads that card out for you. And your time starts now. 3 minutes. You will have 3 minutes to make decisions. I don't know what I want to say. Okay, I just remembered. Among the opportunities, there can be various situations, as we've just seen: land plots, cryptocurrency, stocks, and also different kinds of side income. It could be an apartment or their sale, it could be volunteering or even card games, essentially diverse possibilities in completely different interpretations, and you then make the decision whether you wish to purchase or sell that specific asset. The next deck of cards is assets and liabilities. It's gray and it can include various types of both assets and liabilities. These can be apartments or cars. What is the difference between assets and liabilities in real life? Perhaps not everyone watching this video knows. If you're interested, you can find more detailed information online, or you can also check out the demo version of Lifebot to see the rules and explanations there. Generally speaking, in simple terms, any item you purchase can either bring you money or take it away. On the assets liabilities cards, you'll simply see a QR code, which, when scanned, reveals information about what that item might be. For example, this could be buying a car for 10, 20, or 150,000 euros. An apartment might be at the excavation stage, for example, cheap for some worship 40 or 50,000 euros, or it could be a business class open house for 500,000 to 1 million euros. Well, the assets and liabilities cards are not compulsory. This means if you land on an assets and liabilities space, you can simply choose not to draw a card, and in doing so save time. So when you realize you don't have enough money to purchase a specific asset, you can just avoid picking up these cards. For assets and liabilities, just like for opportunities, you are given 3 minutes to decide. For instance, use the opportunities or assets and liabilities card, then you can say the word market. In 2 words, what's it for? When you acquire an asset, you will most likely want to quickly realize its value, that is, to sell it. Accordingly, when you buy, you can say market. And then 1 extra card is drawn from the opportunities deck. There's no choice here. In this case, the top card is drawn from the opportunities deck. It's read out by the host, and then you make your decision. There might be a sale, or there might even be a purchase. Again, you can buy something more. And just so you understand, during your turn,
within these 3 minutes, you can say the word market no more than 3 times within your allotted time. So for example, if you just bought a car, you said market and you drew a crypto card, right? You received information that you could say buy more crypto. You, for instance, bought it. You say market once more. Okay, no problem. The next card is drawn. This is the stocks card. Okay, you wanted to buy some stocks, then you bought even more stocks. You said market for the 3rd time, and then some games came up. Again, I'm not entirely sure how accurate it is to say. And so you can place your bets on Usyk that he's going to fight Tyson Fury now, for anyone who wants to make a wager. And generally speaking, if you've managed to use 3 markets during your allotted time, then that's perfectly fine. However, if you find yourselves running out of time, then consequently there's no real point in mentioning that market.
In our game, just like in real life, there are certain penalties, and we have a light version of penalties, not a hard version. Accordingly, first of all, the light version. What could lead to penalties, even in this light version of the game? Well, first and foremost, you might have rolled the dice out of turn. For instance, Sasha hasn't even finished her move yet, but I'm so eager to live, so eager to play, I just throw the dice. In such a case, either I pay a fine and Sasha finishes her turn, or Sasha gives up her turn and I move instead of her. Another scenario could be that you intend to purchase, for instance, a car priced at 8,000 euros and you hand the banker host 10,000 euros and you don't ask for anything, you simply say, I'm buying it. In such a situation, the host takes those 10,000 euros, keeps them, deposits 8,000 into the bank, and the remaining 2,000 euros, which you did not request, the host keeps as a penalty. So you must specify the change. If you state the change is less than what you should get, you receive what you stated. If you state a larger amount, meaning you want to cheat the bank, then most likely the host simply won't give you any change and will say, no, recount. And the third option in the light version of penalties is not paying expenses on time. For example, you drew a chance card. Imagine a situation. You need a new MacBook, 1,000 euros. Your turn ends and you haven't paid the 1,000 euros. Then you must pay not 1,000 but 2,000 euros as soon as your turn ends. The same goes for the accounts squares. You passed accounts, your cash flow is negative, you didn't pay. For example, you had minus 500. You didn't pay, the turn is over. That's it. You now must pay not 500 but 1,000 euros to the bank. Well, first and foremost, everything remains the same as in the light version. Additionally, if you happen to shout market when it wasn't actually your turn to play, for instance, let's say Dima purchased some shares and you weren't involved in that particular transaction, right? And then you call out market. In such a specific case, you will have to pay a penalty. The first time it's 100 euros, the second time 200, then 500, then 1,000, and after that, it simply doubles. If you are in agreement, that is, you bought shares with Dima together, then you can say, any person who was involved in a transaction can also use the term market. And the third type of penalty is when you advise someone on something, even though no one asked you to. Have you ever been in situations where you advise someone on something and then that person didn't solve their problem and then made you the culprit for everything? I've had this happen quite often myself, and many players who played for me also said it happens frequently. And so that in our lives we don't do that, or at least do it a little less, this kind of penalty was created. So if you wish to offer someone a recommendation or have something to share, you can propose it for a fee. This means you can ask the individual for no less than 30% of what they will earn or save as a direct result of your counsel. If the person pays you, then okay, no questions asked. All such penalties, like the market and unsolicited advice, are collective.
And similarly about the dice roll on your turn, what does that mean?
So, if, for example, you haven't received a fine in the game yet, someone before you has already received a fine of 100 and even 200 euros, and you for the first time, for example, called market on your turn, then you now receive a fine not of 100 euros, but already 500. Why? Because all previous players' fines double the subsequent ones. Therefore, I advise you to keep an eye on this and avoid getting caught. The version of penalties we'll be playing with you today, you agree upon at the start of the game. If no one has said anything about it, then by default, we will play the hard version of penalties. The next deck of cards is development. Development is represented by the white cells. This is what the development cards look like, and for development we also get 3 cards to choose from. So the host will offer you a choice among 3 cards. Also, above the QR codes, the specific categories these cards can belong to are listed. For example, these could be advertising or a skill, in this particular case IT, or relationships. You choose one of 3 cards, then the QR code is scanned and a 2-minute timer starts. You'll have 2 minutes for these cards. Let's just suppose for a moment that I be interested in developing a skill. I have my own call center, the one we discussed previously, correct?
In my call center, there's a sales skill, an IT skill is also available, and a public speaking and communication skill. In this particular case, the IT skill is suitable for me. I can acquire it. If I have sufficient funds, I can easily take this skill without any problems. However, if there were a different skill here that wasn't suitable for me, or for instance, I didn't possess the IT skill on my shelf, I would be able to proceed in this manner.
When you choose any skill, you can roll a die. If you roll a 1, 3, or 5, you can tell the lead coach to provide the skill you need most right now. If you roll a 2, 4, or 6, then by default, you pick the skill you received before, the one the lead coach showed you first. It's important. If you've drawn cards multiple times in a row, specifically twice in a row, and you had a relationship choice, as in this scenario, but you declined it, meaning you didn't pick the relationship card, opting for advertising or skills instead, it doesn't matter which. Then, the third time this situation occurs, you are not allowed to refuse relationships. You are obligated to draw the relationship card. The next deck is dark green with hired employees. The cells are dark green and there are hired employee cards. The hired employees have the option to be a worker or a manager. That means you can hire a virtual worker or a manager. When you make the decision that you need to bring in a new employee, you essentially have to roll the dice to figure out if they're actually going to come work for you or not. I've had these situations in my life many times where after an interview, you just know the person is an absolutely perfect fit. You think, oh, that's it, they should work here. And everyone will be happy, including this person's co. And then the person just disappears. If this has happened to you, please leave a comment below the video. If not, perhaps someday in your life, you will experience it. So you roll a die, and if it lands on 1, 3, or 5, then they come to work for you on the terms they requested. If it lands on 2, 4, or 6, then he has backed out. He has completely cut you off. He's given you the cold shoulder. What conditions could there be? It could be some amount, 1,000 to 5,000 euros salary, or it could be a percentage of your total income. However, it might happen that an employee has refused, meaning you rolled a 2, a 4, or a 6, but you really like this person. You truly want them to work for you, and you are ready to increase their salary. Then you can tell the coach that you are willing to offer them twice as much and roll the dice once more. If a 1, a 3, or a 5 comes up the second time, then they will come to work for you with a doubled salary. So first, if you roll a 2, 4, or 6, that automatically means the employee is not yours. There's no decision to make there. You just move on. Now, when you land on the hired employee space, that's where you get a choice. At that point, you can either hire an employee or take a development card for yourself. If you'd rather focus on developing your company instead of hiring someone right away, you can simply say, please pick up a development card. If you do decide to hire the employee and they agree to work for you, then we fill out all of their information on the tablet. It looks like this. Here's my tablet for reference, and as you can see, I don't have any hired employees yet.
So, we must always fill the board from left to right, meaning from this side, right, the first employee who is hired to work in my call center should go here. If I already have this employee, then the next one goes here. This is how we fill the board. When you place a hired employee on your tablet, you'll see the amount they provide, which in this specific instance is times 2. This means your total income, which is 3,000 in this scenario, gets multiplied by 2, and your overall earnings after they join your team becomes 6,000. It's also possible that one of the actual players might want to work for you as a hired employee or become your partner. In such a case, there are 2 options. The first option is if a person comes to work for you as an employee, then they should account for 40% of general expenses from the total income that you pay them. And if your salary increases, then he must also increase his expenses. The second option is this. If this is a true partnership, you could divide it taking 20% each. That means you would record 20% of the total income for yourself and 20% for him. And accordingly, as your income starts to grow, the platform will develop and your expenses will also increase. But for a hired worker from the players to join you, they must possess either a tablet that suits what you do or a skill that suits that tablet. And in this way, the tablet or skill they use for you won't give them anything, but will simply be confirmation that they are employed by you. The black square says entrepreneurship. Work courses. In this case, you can take the entrepreneurship work tiles when you land on this square. And maybe if you don't want to take the entrepreneurship work tile when you're on the black square, you can say employee or development. If you're interested in something else instead of the tile, you can ask the host for it. If you have decided on the employee's tablet for yourself, after all, you take the first card from the top and read the conditions. In this case, an IT specialist means a brand new job.
If you've worked in a different job before and you enjoy the IT profession, you can simply abandon your old career path and choose this one. If, for instance, you are an entrepreneur, then you won't be able to get a job anymore unless you close it down. But in reality, there is absolutely no sense in doing that. It's also possible that you'll have 2 or even 3 entrepreneurial activities running in parallel. To operate 2 business activities, no additional conditions are required. However, if you wish to open a 3rd business unit, you must have at least 1 hired employee in each of the first 2. One more point regarding hired employees. If you're performing any action involving your hired workers, for instance, if one moves from one board section to another, or if you wish to transfer a hired worker to another player at any given moment, you must roll a die. Should the die show a 1, a 3, or a 5, then that worker agrees to your action. However, if it lands on a 2, a 4, or a 6, he will not agree and is immediately rejected.
Card circle. Yeah, cases. The cases are dark red in color. The cell is dark red in color. The case cards.
The first one from the top is taken, the QR code is red. There can be cases related to real life. We've already talked about them before. They can also be work related. For example, a hired employee wants twice the salary, or a hired employee is caught stealing, he is fired, and so on. If you land on an incident square, you have the opportunity to get out of that situation, provided it's not directly linked to your game's narrative. For instance, it might be that you need to donate to a child in Roblox, but you currently don't have any children of your own. In that case, you can simply state that, and then you won't be required to make the payment.
If you don't declare it, you will have to pay. How to insure against incidents? First of all, an insurance policy. We've already talked about it.
Secondly, at any point in the game, you can fold with all players at the table or pay 40,000 euros yourself. And in that case, the stakes will not be raised today. The third key point on how you can secure yourself is when your professional platform is developed to its fullest potential. This will be your ultimate safeguard, because as a rule, when your platform is fully optimized, most challenges associated with your work and entrepreneurial endeavors are no longer nearly as daunting. Alright friends, let's move on to the next phase of our game. How do you win, and what exactly will this game provide you with? So, when you manage to gather 5 chips from 2 significant categories of life, for instance, this could involve personal development and your finances. It might be about gaining recognition and building a strong family, and so forth. When you collect 5 chips from 2 distinct categories, then you advance to the inner triangle of Maslow's pyramid. First of all, you can place your token anywhere. If we're talking about the first stage of the game, you must place your token on start at the beginning. Here you can place it on any space. Also, in the next stage of the game, there aren't really many options. There are red and blue spaces, hired workers, and account cells. When you land on a cell that is red or dark blue, you will be offered a choice, like in the Matrix. Which pill do you want? The red one or the blue one?
You are Neo, and I, as Morpheus or your coach, I'm offering you a choice. Even if you've landed on the blue square, you can still choose the red one. If you've landed on the red one, you can always choose the blue. It's absolutely no problem at all, this disinformation.
And what kinds of situations could potentially occur there? For example, a substantial business involving the hiring of a CEO. So okay, you can open a super cool business. It could be a monopoly. Now, for those who love Monopoly, you can even play around here. It could be volunteering, but on a very large scale. It could even be that you run for mayor of your city and people will vote anonymously for or against you. So the situations are completely different, entirely unique. And the next stage of the game is about opportunities for other people. Meaning there's more money, more interesting situations, more opportunities. So how do you win the game? In our game, Osamo, every single player has a vote. This means that when you complete the game, you have your own vote. The coach host also has a vote, and a vote is given to every person who advances to the next stage of the game. So if you advance to the next stage of the game, you receive your vote. Then we conduct a vote after the post-game feedback, and the one who gets the most votes wins the game. You are not permitted to vote for yourself, nor are you allowed to vote for the host or the coach. You are free to cast your vote for any of the other players. So what exactly happens next? Once you successfully win a game, you will then proceed to the semifinals. In the semifinals, all of those who have emerged victorious from the regular games will meet. As a general rule, these are quite experienced individuals. As practice shows, most of them are communicative, active people. These are people who achieve something in life, meaning they have some good experience.
And so in this community, you gain new experience, get new knowledge, and make new connections, which is crucial. This is a really great community. And in the semifinals, we determine who will participate in the final. Then we hold the final game among all semifinal winners, and whoever wins the final receives, first and foremost, our signature game, a complimentary demo version of Live as a gift, and also discovers the unique opportunity to become our valued partner, a dedicated coach, to gain a complete understanding of this game from the inside, to grasp what truly makes it so exceptional, the way that we facilitate it, how people are drawn to it, bringing their friends, and more. This means receiving comprehensive support from us to become an outstanding coach and to gain immense enjoyment and deep satisfaction from the entire process, and to provide even greater value and benefit to others. It's optional, it's individual, we discuss it with every winner. This way you primarily get enjoyment from the game, and secondly, you gain invaluable experience. In just 3 hours of play, you live a lifetime and gain so much amazing insights and so on. In the third place, this is a very cool community. That is, many people who are involved in different spheres can be very useful to you in your own life. These could be your business partners or your friends. This has already been the case in hundreds of games that I have hosted. I also gain motivation. You can win this beauty. All this together gives you unforgettable experiences, which you'll likely want to pass on. Many thanks for watching this video to the very end.
Please go ahead and like it. Yes, I also wanted to say at the end, please forgive me if there weren't quite enough jokes. I really wanted to joke around, but these are the rules and it's quite difficult to joke here. But at the actual game, believe me, there will be plenty of jokes, a lot of exciting emotions, and truly unforgettable moments. So please come to the game and bring all your friends along. Bam!